I think unless you have any questions, I think we should just kick off. What do you say?
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
100%.
Yeah. So this is
I
this is
I have like a irregular setup here. I'm traveling at the moment.
oh, okay. Okay.
This is not my normal. This is not my natural habitat. I'm sort of
Sure.
making it work the best I can. But I think I have all the necessary ingredients for the your legendary drawing live sessions.
I don't know
Really
about
high
legendary.
bar. You've been set,
Infamous,
it's a
maybe.
very high bar.
I don't know about that, but thank you. So if for anyone who doesn't know you, Tom, you're a New Yorker cartoonist, among other things. You're an illustrator, an artist. You're a speaker. You're a multi hyphenate. You're a very talented uh, cartoonist. You're one of the first cartoonists that I remember seeing your work and saving. Like when I started collecting New Yorker cartoons, like my favorites. I remember yours were always in the pile as ones that were good examples of not just jokes, but also like composition and expression and all that sort of stuff. So you've been in the magazine for a long time now, right? When did you sell your first New Yorker cartoon?
Yeah. That's right. Thanks for aging me, by the way.
You don't
Uh,
look very old. You must have sold your first one when you were 12.
yeah. I was a prodigy, obviously. No, I broke in 2010 was when I had my first cartoon published, and that was
Wow.
after about 2.5 years of submitting.
Yeah.
I was sending in like hard copy submissions, so I would get back those classic rejection slips, and I have my little collection of them too. But yeah, it was in 2010 they started buying from me, so I've been doing it for about 15 years. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that was under
Do you
Bob
remember?
Mankoff,
Do you
right?
remember the one? Do you remember which one struck you? I'm super curious about your experience.
I'd have to go back through my file. It's like an old folder full of old sketches and cartoons. It's like one of these kind of things.
Got you. So
It's
you would
always
actually cut
it's
them out of the magazine.
I would collect them like when you're sort of trying to think of how to execute an idea. A lot of yours, interestingly enough, that I liked were a lot of talking animals. But the the thing in my head that I always get stuck on isn't so much the idea as much as the execution of it because there are so many angles and I do thumbnails and sort of
Right.
redraw it thinking maybe move things around and direct the eye around I obviously overthink it too, but like directing the eye around the image and making sure that people see certain things using solids and negative space. Yours always do that, and you use a lot of wash and grays and solids, and I there are certain cartoonists who I look to for that sort of as a bit of a guide, and yours often have that. You very consciously compose your jokes, your cartoons, such that
Yeah.
the reader does the image caption image thing, and it just like it all just kind of clicks. And I know that's not easy to do. It's really hard to do well.
It took a while. Yeah, I mean, it took a
Yeah,
while. I just started a Substack called Undiscovered Masterpieces, and
yeah, it's great.
part of the joke of that is that like I often will say when I'm giving my presentations, like it took me 2 years to break in, and they finally bought my 610th cartoon, and like not all of the ones that I had submitted up until that point were like undiscovered masterpieces.
Yeah,
I was very much learning on the fly and kind of
yeah,
like really honing in. I was always attracted, leafing back through the complete anthology New Yorker cartoons. My
right.
eyes always drawn toward the more richly composed, like the dense ink washes and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
I like not only having a good joke, but having it like well painted, well composed,
rendered.
something that
Yeah,
satisfying like image. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because I feel
totally.
like
And
it's more attractive. It also like heightens the humor too, because I like to sort of lure people into this very like a gentle, softly painted environment, and then hit them with like a kind of wry wisecrack. So I feel like it almost like disarms the reader in a way and like sets them up for the joke. You know?
yeah, it lures them in. You're right. It does feel like it's an innocent and very comfortable, sort of comforting setting. And then all of a sudden you read and you go, Jesus. It really hits you because
Yeah,
it is that discordance. It's that sort of like, oh, wow.
yeah.
And I know you do other cartoon work and illustration work, but with the New Yorker, I noticed that there is, as the best New Yorker cartoonists have, is there is this distinct style. Like you can pick your cartoons a mile away because of that tone that you set. If
Mm.
like as soon as I see one of yours in a magazine, I'm immediately just drawn to it, being like, oh, what's he done now? You know, like,
That's very flattering. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
well, the
Yeah.
one the one obviously that that jumped out at me, and this may be one that you sold under Bob years ago, Bob Mankoff years ago, was um the Apocalypse cartoon. You
Mm.
know, but for a time we made
Yeah.
shareholders a lot of money.
Yeah.
This is a cartoon that unfortunately it's an
That was
evergreen.
on the back of my that one.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you care
That's
to
because
read the
whenever
caption? I hate to make you read your own galley, but would you read the caption for the viewers?
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know if my camera's flipping it around oppositely, but yeah, so there's children gathered around a campfire with someone in a torn business suit, and there's an apocalyptic landscape behind them, and the business suit guy is saying, "Yes, the planet got destroyed, but for a beautiful moment in time, we created a lot of value for shareholders."
my my favorite part of the gag isn't just the desolate landscape and apocalyptic, bonfire. It's the word beautiful.
Yeah.
It's for a beautiful moment in time.
I like that really
uh
like the way that he's like waxing poetic
yeah,
about being a hedge fund manager or whatever he was doing is what
yeah,
he, it's like yeah.
right.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
funnily
it,
enough, the story behind that cartoon is I was actually not going to submit cartoons that week. I was away at a writing retreat with a friend, and
mm,
they had like some random work they had to finish up before we started our work day. So he was sort of occupied with his project, and I was like, well, I have a couple hours. I might as well. It's a Monday. I might as well like shoot off a batch to Bob.
right.
And so I drew this. I included that one as part of my batch, and then he got back to me the next day and said, we want this for a issue, which means you need to deliver it like that week because they want to run it immediately. Um, am I
They
getting a
did
little bit of
that.
a
I
sketchy?
didn't know that they ever ran stuff so quickly like that.
I'm in the
It's really
basement. I'm
funny.
in the basement of a friend's house, so like if I get a sketchy connection, I apologize. But I have a
Oh
few
no, that's okay.
bars.
Sorry, it's probably me. Um, I didn't know
Yeah,
that
so
they
they
ran
call
them
it
so fast after buying them.
yeah, they run it in a issue, so you have to deliver the artwork like that very week. And so I had to
Oh,
run back from the retreat, draw it. So it was not only a cartoon that I wasn't planning to submit, but I had to like complete the finish quicker than I usually do. And that ended up being my most enduring cartoon. So I guess that's kind of a lesson in like don't agonize too much over the drawing. Like there's something to be done for like reactivity and speed.
yes,
You know,
definitely.
even though
Yeah,
I'm an agonizer, like if you give me enough time, I will just like agonize over the drawing forever.
of course. What is it? Parkinson's law. The work expands to fill the time allowed for its completion.
Exactly.
Um, it's
Exactly.
if I have an open deadline, I'm never finished. I'm never turning it in. I'll just keep monkeying with it until I die.
Which is why
The
the New Yorker is actually nice because the
Yeah,
weekly schedule of it kind of keeps you on your toes and makes you a little less precious with your material. You know?
yeah. I mean, if you keep that cadence, it forces you to get good at working, like turning stuff around.
Yeah.
Especially the dailies. I don't know. Do you submit daily cartoons? For anyone who doesn't know, the daily cartoons on the New Yorker, they run in the newsletter and on the website and socials sometimes. And it's more of a topical daily cartoon. And we pitch those each morning. And sometimes they run them, like immediately that day if it's like a topical news story. Do you ever pitch those?
I do a couple times if something occurs to me that seems like it's particularly topical or like more editorial, because those cartoons tend to be a little bit more in the editorial cartoon vein where they're responding to headlines, you know. And
Mm.
the cartoons in the magazine tend to be a little more timeless, sociological, not necessarily wedded to any current events, right? Because they want to be able to hold them and run them kind of whenever.
Yeah.
But the daily cartoons are much more responsive. So sometimes I'll have one. Sometimes one will get like pulled from my regular batch they want to run as a daily. So they'll just do that. And actually it's different where they used to under Bob, 10 years ago, they would assign cartoonists to do the daily for a run. So you
Yeah.
would do like a month. So you kind of, which was nice because you knew you had a regular gig. So I did that. Actually just happened to do it during Trump's first inauguration. So I did all these
Wow.
cartoons that actually became fairly popular like during Trump's inauguration, and they were collected into a small book called Tiny Hands. Um,
Nice.
so that's when I did the daily most actively, but I do it occasionally now. Yeah.
I do remember you doing that when there was a run. I don't know how long the runs were because they did vary. I know Pat Burns did it for a long time, and then David Cypress and
Mm.
different cartoonists kind of jumped in and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
It was
think
not. It was
when it,
not the most natural fit for me because, like, I was
right,
trying to maintain my like painterly style, so it was a little bit agonizing.
yeah,
But like a Cypress, like he has the perfect style for that kind of, really, torn from the headlines,
yeah,
responsive cartooning. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, but it was fun. I liked feeling like you were sort of like wired into current events was a different mode. It was interesting. Yeah,
it is
but I
the
like the way
editorial
it's
cartoonist
more
mode.
like a
Yeah.
training ground. It's like it sort of is more like a training ground for new artists now. It feels like.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's no other editorial cartooning opportunities really for cartoonists where they're in a newsroom and they're looking at the news of the day and they're coming up with a cartoon that day that's going to run, pretty much immediately within the news cycle, even though the news cycle is like 90 minutes long now. It does feel like that's the last kind of real large scale daily cartoon. Everything else feels a lot of the syndicated cartoons, a lot of the editorial and political cartoons that run now, they feel like they have to be broader, not just because they have to run in a lot of different newspapers and markets, but the story could change so dramatically, a detail of the story could change so dramatically that they have to pick a larger story than some specific thing that happened that morning, or because it could be spiked by noon. you
Right.
know
That's a really good point. That's a good point. Yeah, I know you had Anne Selnace on,
yeah,
and yeah, she was doing a really good job with that until obviously, famously, infamously,
yeah,
leaving the house. There's only a few people who are now like, I mean, I follow Adam Ziegler. He's
yeah, he's great.
the Buffalo News, I think
Mhm.
it's the name of the newspaper. But yeah, like the local cartoonist who handles the editorial cartooning for a specific newspaper and is like part of that community and
Mm,
like also has national reach, but like Adam will also do like, Buffalo Bills, football jokes that appeal
right.
specifically to that community. That is really I mean, it's a beautiful thing, but it's definitely a dying breed for sure. Yeah.
It is, yeah. That's where I got my start. I was doing editorial
Oh,
cartoons for local newspapers and like local politics and local, cultural stories and news, and we were doing six newspapers a week, and they would be for different markets as well. So we'd have to kind of keep up with the news in each market and just kind of make these very tailored to that tone for each one. And then I had this. He was a good editor. It actually makes a big difference to have a mean editor, like a good. It was like a J. Jonah Jameson type.
curmudgeonly.
Very. And he would never let me get away with anything. If a bit, it doesn't matter if it was 10 minutes to deadline and he didn't like it, he'd say, "Go back, do it again." And
Wow.
I was doing everything by hand. There was no digital.
Wow. Is that where you
Yeah.
honed your, I mean, you're an excellent observational sketcher. Is that, I mean, that sounds like it's kind of where you honed your talents to draw from life.
Yeah, I think it was out of fear. Yeah, it was probably out of panic. Yeah, probably just the idea that I uh, having to work fast meant that I had to not be precious about the line, and I had to just learn how to quickly churn stuff out and work fast. So that naturally sort of transferred over to live drawing and sketching and sort of being able to just like turn stuff out in the moment. Because if I, again, given the opportunity, I'd sit down and I'd do pencils and I'd do different compositions and I'd use inks and wash and all kinds of stuff. But if I don't have that, the luxury of that, then I'll just pare it down to using, whatever's available and super
Right.
quick. I don't know
Right.
if you do ever do any live stuff, live drawing.
I've been doing a tour for my recent kids book that came
Yeah.
out. So Crocodiles Need Friends Too. And so I do for like the child audiences, I will, if the venue provides me with like a large easel and sketch pad, I will do like sketching based on the kids' recommendations for like, what should the crocodile be doing now? And I'll just like very quickly do it. So I have been getting a little bit more comfortable with it. Honestly, like sketching is never something that I am entirely comfortable with. It takes a
Yeah.
long time for me to like the composition. I'm
Right.
glad it comes across in my cartoons that like they're fairly carefully composed.
Yeah,
But
they
like it
are.
does,
Yeah.
I'll get satisfied. I'll go through many drafts of penciling. I'll like hone in the details. And then when I'm finally happy with it, I'll do the tighter inking on a light board and then start to wash it in. But I have a great admiration for people who can sketch like you do.
Well,
Yeah.
honestly, it's like I said, it's usually out of panic. So it was it's
Yeah,
like
kind of.
out of survival. Yeah.
See, yeah, we'll see when we flip the cameras and point them down at our sketchboards. We'll see just how clumsy my initial drawings are.
No,
But I do. Yeah, it's funny. I always want to. I have a kind of a hang up on like doing stuff that's not toward a particular end. Like
yeah,
just sitting down to draw for drawing's sake. Maybe it's just a
right.
virtue of being a parent and being too busy and feeling like I don't have the free time to just like enjoy drawing.
Yeah,
But I think it's super important to like keep in touch with that because otherwise, like I don't know, if you stop learning, you're
yeah,
sort of
I
just
think so.
you're executing your own. It sort of becomes self-referential, like in a way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I never thought of it that way. It is self-referential if you just sort of stagnate in that one thing, because I mean, it's easier to do that because you've always got something that needs doing. There's always another deadline. There's always another
Yeah,
thing that needs on the list. And if you don't carve out that time just to draw for yourself, you do kind of lose that play. You lose
yeah,
that sense of just like, fun and learning.
yeah.
Like I only really started to carve out like chunks in my calendar as if they were meetings, such that I could sit and like get better and draw, and maybe I do like a study of like something very specific, like dog noses or like hands or something, just something so that I had something to get better at. But without a reason to do it, you can just kind of go, that's fine. I got other things to do. But you just kind of have to deliberately carve that time out a bit and just,
That is
you,
very smart to like treat it like an athlete's
right,
training every day.
right.
You got to do it, or else you lose the metabolism. But
Well,
yeah,
I
but like,
certainly don't have athletic ability.
yeah, exactly, yeah, yeah. But like, I mean, not exactly. I don't know. You could be athletic. I'm not trying
Nope.
to just. But like, it also like you want to at a certain point you have an audience.
Yes.
Like, hopefully, as an artist, you've generated an audience based on stuff you've done, and so it's like hard to kind of like push yourself to continue to grow, like because you want to keep changing, you want to evolve, follow your interests, not get bored like with your own stuff.
Yeah.
But you want to bring your readership along with you, like you want to bring your audience along with you, and especially when you're in a venue like the New Yorker, where it's like
Right.
there's pressure to kind of deliver a known quantity or like a known style, right?
Right.
Because it is so hard to break in, and so it's
Of
like
course.
you don't want to risk your you don't want to like surprise the editors with something they didn't ask for or are familiar with. So I'm always
Yeah.
looking for. I did a comic for Andrews McMeel a little way. It's on hiatus now as I work on other stuff.
Right.
Home Free, which is it's sort
Yeah.
of different in style than my New Yorker stuff, and I used it actually as an opportunity to try a different style, use different, just literally different equipment, like just
Yep.
using nib instead of micron pens, which I usually use to get that variable line width, and
Right.
to try just like drawing a consistent character going on adventures over a series of panels is completely different than when you're asked for to do in the New Yorker. In the New Yorker, it's like whatever given scenario and cast of characters fits that joke, right?
Mhm.
But in a panel cartoon, you have to be consistent and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so I'm always looking for opportunities to like branch out and not stagnate, you know?
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. I didn't realize that was what I mean with that different style for the strip. It's an interesting exercise and reason, like impetus to
Mhm.
do that. And it's kind of you're right. I was talking to Liana Fink about this. She is tired of it's almost like audience capture in a way. People have come to know her very specifically in this one specific style, but she wants to try some new stuff. She wants to try new styles and tools and methods. And she feels like she's not loving working so much in the old ways that she's been doing it for so long. She's
Mm.
wants to have more novel and interesting and new ways of doing things and wants to have the freedom to be able to do that
Yeah,
rather
yeah.
than be locked into this existing kind of thing that people just happen to be, familiar with her work.
Right, right, right. I mean, people have successfully done it. Like, I often think of William Steig, who I
Sure.
greatly admire, and like his stuff
Yeah.
early on was very kind of cartoony, which is sort of a general description, but it was like very rounded characters. You like
Yes.
shading to them. They had like an objectivity and a depth to them, and he was very much interested in the wash, and he evolved from that to the style that we would recognize in Shrek or the Amazing Bone, or like very sort of flat and
Yeah.
but still like very definitive characters. And so yeah, he's you can go on an evolution. I mean, that was over the course of like 45 years.
Yeah.
uh, and people who successfully do it, I think you keep it interesting for yourself, but also like you maintain, I think you can still maintain the core of like your sensibility as
Mm.
an artist while
Yeah.
evolving your style. And like, but there's no way to do it without leaving room for play and experimentation. I mean, one thing like we can tend to take ourselves a little bit seriously as artists, and one thing like cartoons are uniquely suited to is like just silliness, like
Yeah.
just being goofy. Like
Yeah.
there's very few mediums like encourage that. Like like musicians aren't allowed to often like just like be goofy. Like whereas we can do the serious stuff, but also it's meant to be a little bit loose. And I think
Yeah.
once you start to feel yourself clenching up or delivering something that feels rote, yeah, look for ways to shake out of that.
Yeah. That's Steig's an excellent example of that because, as you say, his early stuff. There's a great book by Lee Lorenz that Lee Lorenz, the for anyone who isn't familiar, Lee Lorenz um, was a previous cartoon editor at the New Yorker, easily one of the best cartoon editors. He's an extraordinary cartoonist in his own right, and he
And
did a book
in his
on.
time, it was he did cartoons and covers. So
Yes,
he was the umbrella art editor of like the entire
yep,
magazine. Yeah,
which I don't think has happened since.
no, no,
Um, Now it's Francoise and Emma, but as like a separate thing. But the idea that he was able to sort of evolve over time and had that freedom to do that. It was amazing because, as you say, the early stuff was quite tight, or it was different. It was a different style, and it was. I think from what Lee was sort of writing about, he sort of saw what was getting published, and he saw what the style du jour was, and would kind of mimic that, and then kind of found his own voice along the way, to the point where now, if you see his later stuff, you're like, wow, that's so different than where he started. It's wildly different, but he influenced so many cartoonists, Liana included, and people like Ed Steed and newer, like younger cartoonists who see that and go, "Whoa, this is insane!" Like, well, where did this come from? And then you watch the evolution of it. I mean, to me, I was watching it backwards because I'd only ever seen his later stuff. I'd never seen
right,
his early stuff, and just
right.
seeing it in the book, I was like, "Oh, okay." So you can start in one place and then sort of gradually, shuffle towards a
Yeah, yeah.
completely different place.
I think there's it might be an apocryphal story, but the story is that he was drawing, and then his kid he was laying out a cartoon, and
Yeah,
then his kid came into a studio or something and was like, I liked that. I like this drawing better than that. Like what you did with it. Like he liked the sketch you're drawing, and I don't know. It could be an apocryphal like turning point moment, but like yeah. So he just started like doing like keeping his first drafts, like
yeah.
as the cartoons instead of working them over. You know.
Wow, that's interesting. God, I mean, I have to admit, sometimes I do look at the pencil sketches, the roughs, and because they are so loose and free, it's really hard to replicate some of that line in the finished, like with a micron, with a brush pen or something like that. So you kind of are constantly working against this feeling that you can't really replicate in finishes,
Right. Right.
unless you literally use the draft as the
Right.
finished art. Yeah, that's so
Yeah. That's one
interesting.
of
I
the
didn't know.
tricky.
I'd never heard that story.
Yeah, yeah. I forget where I read it, but it might have been in Lee's book, but I'm not sure. But like, that's one of the trickiest things is like, you're doing a batch of pitches for the New Yorker every week, and they are, sketches because
Mm,
it's not reasonable to take time to do full blown finishes. Or when you're trying to break into the magazine, it actually kind of behooves you to like do more finished stuff so they know what you do, like they know what a finish looks like.
yeah,
But I sort of over time, earned the right, quote unquote, the Bob gave me permission to like just send in sketches. So then I just
roughs.
start
Yeah,
but when they okay something, then it's like, oh, they okayed this, and then it's really, really hard to like go from the sketch to maintaining the spontaneity into the
yeah,
finish, because like not only is it like, oh, they like this one, I can't change anything, but it's also like, you're trying to redo something and almost like, I don't know, it feels almost that's one of the hardest things is like that sense of
yeah,
spontaneity, the line, like you said, the energy in the line
yeah.
like keeping
It,
that the finish is like actually one of the hardest things to do, you know?
yeah. I think a lot of artists have also sort of mentioned that that's such a bugbear of theirs, is trying to capture the energy of their pencils in their finishes. Sam Gross taught me a trick years ago. Initially, it was about doing a wash. He wanted he said that he'd do, he'd have the drawing, the rough, and then he'd kind of do a finish version, and he'd do it super rough, but then he'd sort of photocopy. He'd have photocopies, he'd just make a bunch of photocopies, and in the back of his head, the knowledge that he had these photocopies to kind of, if he messed up, it's fine. I've got copies. It allowed him the freedom, like mentally and just like physically, to just like be a bit more haphazard.
Mm,
And
interesting.
so it brought more energy into his line, knowing that he could just, pick up one of the other ones and go again. He never used any of the other ones though. He would just
Huh.
have them. It's like a mental trick, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like the net underneath the tightrope walker. It's like it gives you the confidence to do that. That's really
It's
cool.
it's
I
before
never
we
had
had an undo button.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's a children's book author. I'm not going to be able to remember their name. They did Click Clack Moo about cows who like steal a farmer's typewriter and issue demands from the barn. But like she would do the same thing where she would do her inks and
Yeah.
then like make a bunch of photocopies of the page. So
Yep.
when doing the coloring, you could just like try again, keep it loose, that kind of thing, which is really that's really a great idea. Um,
Yeah.
if I have to fault myself, I'm constantly faulting myself. Like I can't look at my own cartoons without immediately seeing everything I would
Same.
change.
Me too.
Like I'm a little to critique myself. Like I'm a little paint by numbers. Like it's hard for me to like thinking about Sam Gross's wash style or
Yeah.
Gilbert
Yeah.
style. It's still hard for me to like do a wash that goes outside the line or like that goes
Yeah.
like I need to have it inside the line.
Yeah.
I always admire people who can have that sense of looseness.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, that's just
It,
me.
it, there are like Frank Modell and Chuck Saxon and people like that. There are the really tight, beautifully composed, amazingly, painterly almost, these compositions. But then you can also see sometimes they do have these like swoopy brush strokes that are clearly just a one stroke, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, you had the balls to just do that in one. It's so
Well,
great to
he
see
was
those in
like
the
white. He
collection.
was like the white over the black, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you can't. It's hard to undo.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, because
Um,
like back in the day, earlier in the magazine, they would, they had this sort of slush pile of just cartoon ideas that were sent in.
yes.
So there was a little bit more painterly style because like they didn't have to come up with their own jokes a lot of the time. Like you'd be assigned a gag to do, and so they could
Yeah.
actually, hire artists, like people who were actually
Artists,
illustrators,
illustrators. Yeah.
exactly. But in the William Shawn era, then he required both. So
That
you
was
had to,
the
yeah,
the singer-songwriter cartoonist. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
I noticed that because I have a book coming out. I have two. I have next spring and next fall. I have two books coming out. With Andrews McNeil Publishing, and I know you have one coming out in the fall of this year, right? On the 7th of October. Is it a
Yep.
collection? It's a collection of your cartoons.
It's a collection. Yeah, it's a collection of all my best stuff from the past 15 years at the New Yorker, and also some weirder stuff that appeared in their other periodicals and magazines. Yeah, so I have a copy of it right here. It's called
Nice.
And to think we started as a book club.
I love that cartoon. A bunch of ladies in with the
Yeah,
crowbar and the hoods.
yeah,
Great.
exactly. So yeah, that's
That's
coming out October 7th, available for pre-order wherever fine books are sold. But yeah, so we're getting a lot of
fantastic.
good blurbs from artists, and I have a whole big tour plan. So it's going to be great to get out there and
That's
share.
fantastic. I
We're
know,
doing cartoon collect doing proper collections are like kind of rarer nowadays.
yeah.
Because the availability of your stuff on social media is just so prevalent. So getting a publisher to agree to like actually do a collection is really nice.
I think about that a lot actually because they used to say, especially with gags, you can't sell them once they've been published online. And so people don't know this, but the New Yorker often what they're buying is not just the idea and the cartoon, but they're buying first pub rights, first publication rights, and they have exclusivity on it. I think 90 days after first publication. But when they buy it and they can hold it for as long as they like. But it's after they publish it that they have, that 90-day clock starts. And you can never post, if you sell something and it hasn't run, you can never post it on social. You can never post it online. Anyway, you can't publish it in a book. Um, and it's such an interesting, there must be an obscure German word for the feeling of, knowing a joke that you've sold that hasn't run yet. In the back of your head, it's like in the hopper, and you don't know when it's going to run. We never know when it's going to run. We have to pick up the magazine to find. And it's just this feeling of like all those cartoons that you have, in the book, they've either run and the exclusivity has lapsed, or they just never ran, or they ran somewhere else. And so you have freedom to put them in a collection. But then the ones that have been on social media, as you say, there's an argument that the publisher might make, well, it's already been published online. We can't really publish this. It's not exclusive. But in my mind, the value of a collection, that's why I buy collections. Bought Ash's book recently. It was fantastic. All these cartoon collections. Joe Data had a great book, Inked. Um,
Hmm.
is like that it's in one place. You can pick it up, you're in that mood to
Yeah,
see that person's work. You're not going to sort of search for them on Instagram and scroll through. It's just a different tangible tactile feeling and exercise in picking up someone's book. And I noticed that a lot of cartoonists are pivoting from just, the traditional ways of doing just like gag cartoons or whatever, because the market's drying up. They're doing books.
yeah.
You've been doing a bunch of books. I noticed you've been doing your children's book looks fantastic. You've got a few now, right? You've got a bunch of books.
Yeah. This was my fourth children's book that came out in May. I did two that I wrote and illustrated by myself, and I did two in partnership with Simon Rich, which was a
Right.
dream. Such a funny writer. So doing
Yep.
illustrations for his stuff. And yeah, this cartoons collection is coming out in the fall. So it's been like a busy year of publishing.
Yeah.
I hope to do more collections too. Asher has his second coming out, I think, a month before.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I mean, like justifying like putting out a collection when your stuff is available for free online is like if you can get, I think we're trying to prove that it can work, right? And I think Asher sort of paved the way for them being okay with like allowing my book to come
Yeah.
out as well, like yours and other people. So I think I completely agree. You're preaching to the choir when it comes to like having a collection physically in your hand that you can return to and just like read a couple before bed. It's the best.
Yeah.
I grew up on those Far Sides, the Far Side
Same.
collection. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the print quality, like, big up to Andrews McMeel. Like the print quality is really, really good. I'm like,
It is.
because
Yeah.
I take such time with like the grayscale, it looks fantastic. So I'm really proud of the collection. Yeah.
That makes a big difference when it looks good in print. I remember those old Far Side collections. I had the same collections. I had Calvin and Hobbes and Far Side were my, those books that they're so dog-eared. But some of the print was like, I guess the print technology wasn't quite as good. There was a lot of like, different patterns and like very low line, what do you call it? That like the dot printing, the way that it was done, it was
I think that
not
might have been the way
as
they were
good.
originally done in the newspaper. Like, you can
They
actually
were
see.
made for newspaper, right?
I think so. So yeah, there's no way to sort of upskill. But he would do, the covers that he would do for his collections were beautiful. So like he
Incredible painted.
had the ability to like do these much nicer colored, and his Sunday ones were great too. But yeah, the
Yeah.
print quality, yeah, having a physical object, there's nothing like it. I don't
No,
think it's just nostalgia either. I do think there's a different like tactile, pleasurable experience to actually holding it and seeing it and reading it.
I totally agree. I think you have a different relationship with it. It's the same as writing by hand versus typing, I think. It's just
Yeah,
there is a
yeah.
different thing going on. There's a book of collections of, I don't know if you ever read like Richard's Paw Almanac. Richard Thompson has
Ooh.
there's this, it's a collection of all of he used to do these, um, they were just these sort of one pagers, and they would be published, and it was like something different every week. It was something totally different and open, and he'd have these. I mean, you look through them and you're like, he's having. It's what you were saying before. You could be kind of silly and have so much fun with cartoons, and you forget that sometimes you get a little too high minded or like you take yourself too seriously, and then you look at this and you're like, what am I doing? I can just be silly. And he's so silly. And you look
Yeah.
at these collections and seeing it in print, like physically seeing it in print in a book up close, and you can kind of look close at it and get a sense of like, you know, how he maybe arrived at an idea or a drawing or whatever it is. And it's such a different part of the brain that sort of is interacting with like a tangible, piece of art, because it is art. Books are art.
Yeah, no, completely. I agree. The
Um,
greatest invention,
yeah, still.
the greatest
Um,
history. Should we just
we
move
got
to
a
some question?
Yeah, we got a comment in. Dan said, I think Gary had a watercolor artist working for him. Okay, I
Oh,
didn't know about that.
excellent. There you go. Thanks. Dan McConnell is part of the National Cartoonist Society in the Northwest.
Yes,
And
Dan
thanks for.
McConnell, gag cartoonist.
Oh wow, you're cheating. You've already. You've drawn something already.
No, this is my sketch pad. This is my
Oh,
silly
I was like,
sketchbook. I need to find a blank
should I
page.
should I rotate? Should I rotate my camera too down to?
Yeah, I mean, so at this
I don't
point
know.
in the episode, about halfway through, I tried to I don't know about you, but I think very clearly when I'm drawing. I mean, I think it's just that my monkey mind is kind of occupied by um,
Right.
by drawing that I can actually think more clearly.
I
But
remember I
I
was at lunch with you. I was at a lunch with you and Emma and Farley and Sam when Sam was still around, and it
yeah,
was for the release of the film. He won't get far on foot
that's right. It was with Gus Van Sant. Yeah.
with Gus Van Sant. Yeah, and you were like drawing on the tablecloth the whole time.
That's just my inability to not do that. I mean, it was a paper tablecloth. That was a really fun lunch. That was Gus Van Sant had done that film. I think it was Joaquin Phoenix was playing John Callahan,
Exactly,
and
exactly.
yeah, and it was such a good film. I really enjoyed it.
I'm trying to figure out how it looks when I. So I think it's going to be
Yeah,
upside down for the audience.
that looks good. I've actually, are you in horizontal or vertical
I'm in
mode?
horizontal. Yeah, 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 yeah.
If you if you go vertical, I don't know if you can go vertical. Can you go vertical?
Yeah, I can rotate my little thing here.
If you can rotate it 90 degrees and then uh yeah, that is upside down. That's okay. That's okay. I think maybe horizontal's fine. Horizontal's fine.
Wait, so
Because
do you have
it's
the
just
camera? So you're actually looking at the camera. You flipped the screen around, so it's now recording from like the other way,
yeah.
right? Okay, let me
Yeah,
see that.
so this is the back of my phone that I'm
Right, right, right. Sorry, bear with me, everybody. This is my first
no, this is
drawing
the
everything.
it's live and dangerous. Um Yeah, we got a request. So people in the chat will often just request something to be drawn, little ideas, starters. Hugh Walker said, New York rat and pigeon catching up on the gossip, which is always a fun little scene. You're out west, right?
Yes, yes. I did my requisite stint in New York City in my early 20s, but I never worked for the New Yorker while I was living in New York. I started
Really?
selling to them. Yeah. I started selling to them when I had moved back to California. So yeah, it was kind of funny.
Ah.
Whenever, autumn would roll around, I would have to remind myself to put sweaters on my characters. Like, no, there's like no reason to do that. And like, scatter some snow around. Let's see, is this okay? That's better. It's slightly
That's great.
awkward. There we go.
No, but I can see it. We can see it. It's good.
There we go.
Um,
So what are
yeah,
we doing? Doing a rat, and a pigeon.
a rat and a pigeon. I
Okay.
guess it's two very iconic New York characters, I guess. Um,
Does that
yeah,
make sense?
I wonder if there is I remember there was a conversation recently at the French Alliance with, I think it was Barry Blett, Peter DeSev, Anita Kunz, with Francoise Mouly, with the cover editor of the New Yorker talking about these covers and these ideas and these very quintessential New York images that they sort of often use, but one doesn't necessarily have to live here to be able to appreciate, much less depict, these iconic, um, you know, images or settings. Um,
Yeah, I
I'm
mean, I
not
think
from
oh,
here,
I
so
think
I
people
I
are.
pick them,
Uh,
just as readily as anyone.
yes, the human condition also takes place outside of the five boroughs. You might, you might.
Unless you're Steinberg and you have that idea of New York.
Exactly.
I saw a copy of that Steinberg cartoon. The one that I'm referencing, for anyone who hasn't seen it, is it's this very, I want to say iconic. I mean, it's rather well known image that he drew of New York as seen by New Yorkers. He's kind of poking fun at the elitism, or the sort of like the insular, or sort of um, superiority complex of the elite East Coasters, of sort of that there's just New York and the tri-state, and then there's just the Midwest, or I think like flyover states he put and then like you know LA and then Japan and then Russia. Like just there's no delineation between like this. It's pretty much just whatever's in their mentality. What is it ever's in their head? This is a very
Right.
pared down version of the truth.
That is an absolutely great cover. Not
Yeah,
to toot
it's a
my own horn, but
parody.
I had my first cover
Oh
last
wow,
Thanksgiving.
congrats. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a Thanksgiving cover, and it was turkeys wearing those classic novelty Groucho Marx glasses trying to disguise themselves so that they wouldn't be picked by the farmer. Um,
Ah,
and Francois said that, David Remnick, who's the editor, who ultimately is the decision maker of what cartoons get
so-
purchased and run, is a huge Groucho fan. So for anyone trying to
ah,
bring in, you know, try a couple Groucho jokes.
yeah. Yeah. So was that the impetus to try the Groucho joke, or
I
was it
had
that
no
you had
idea.
it?
I had no idea. I just thought it was a funny variation. There's sort of a tradition of the like turkeys trying to disguise themselves
Right.
jokes. There's a great George Booth. I don't think it's a cover, but I think it's a cartoon where there's a turkey sort of going along at the tail of a group of pilgrims carrying their blunderbusses, and
That's right.
the turkey is like
Yes.
disguised in a pilgrim hat.
Right. I,
So funny.
that might be a cover, actually. I'm not sure. I seem to remember seeing it recently somewhere. I don't know if it was a cover or a cartoon. That's the great thing about his work is so many of his cartoons could be covers. Um, the gags were so nice. The one of the dog at the door, just sitting and waiting at the door, is just etched into my brain.
Yes, exactly. And it was actually
Yeah.
fun. Working with Francois was really interesting because I like a little bit of insider New Yorker stuff as well.
Mm,
There's very little editing that actually
really?
happens with your cartoons. Like when you no, I know with Francois there is, but
Oh, right, right,
with the cartoons, like you send in a pitch, you do the finish based pretty exactly on the pitch, and
right,
then like rarely will anyone ever get back to you with some feedback to change any element of the drawing. But with
right.
Francois, it's a pretty involved process of like, reworking the composition. She sent me a lot of like examples, reference art. So that was a really
Yeah.
satisfying, involved process. It was very cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. So did you pitch a bunch of thumbnails or roughs, or did you do a finish, or how did you pitch the idea for the cover?
It was just a rough sketch. It was just actually a turkey way down at the bottom of the page. One turkey wearing a Groucho Marx glasses, and she
Right.
liked just like the way that it looked. And I was like, oh, that'll be really funny because it takes some time for the eye to travel down the page, and then you find this turkey who's obviously like trying to hide from the reader. Um, but she wanted it to be more of a scene, and so we put a bunch more turkeys all wearing goggles on a farm, and then we went back and forth on like, do we have the farmer holding an axe, or is that a little bit too
Ah,
violent?
right.
But then we
Yeah.
put the farmer on the other side of the fence. We made the farmer into a woman farmer who was carrying some vegetables. So like it's about like trying to find that the right tone, for the joke.
Right. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of variation, which I really actually enjoyed. It was fun.
Well, so when you develop that idea with sort of you slowly build it, is it a very rapid fire kind of iteration, or does it take weeks or months, or how fast are we talking with this?
Well, I was super excited, so I did it very quickly. I just set aside. I was like, "There's no way I'm going to mess this up. I'm going to do
Right.
do the best I
That's great.
possibly can."
Right.
So yeah, I worked hard on it. But and it was also just it was very a specific cover for that particular
Right.
holiday. So you want to get it out with ample time.
Of
Uh,
course.
they reserve the right to like not run it right until the last moment. Though
Oh, really?
you're not allowed to share like the news or anything until it's physically in print because
Wow.
there might be some World War III might break out, and then it's all of a sudden
Yeah.
you don't want some silly turkeys. You want Barry Blitt to do something.
Ah, yeah. Or
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you do want silly turkeys. Let's be honest. You want
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
escapism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I've got this rat catching this pigeon up on some news, the gossip.
Oh,
I think
great.
what did Hugh suggest? He said a New York rat talking to a New York pigeon catching up on the gossip.
On the
Now,
go.
what would the gossip be? This is the hard part.
I'm realizing that my drawing is like way. Let's see. I should
This
have it
is
like.
great. That's fantastic.
So
I love it.
the rat is clearly sharing something that is shocking. I like characters to have like pretty deadpan expressions when they're like the recipient of the caption.
Yes. Right.
And I realized obviously midway through that that might not even look like a rat. It's an enormous rat compared to this pigeon, so obviously not to scale.
Right. It's I always think of, and I don't know if you there's different theories of this, because you've read that book, Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud.
I actually have not. No.
Okay, so I just reread it recently because I thought I had read it, and I definitely had, but it's just I reread it thinking, oh, I know what's in this, and it just new stuff popped out at me, and I was like, oh, I don't even remember reading this. And the idea of these characters having these expressions, you
Right.
kind of imbue you're kind of getting the reader to put themselves in that position, the position of the character in a little way,
100%.
like
Yeah.
when you're receiving the joke, the person who is hearing the line, or is the butt of the joke, what you're trying to do somewhat, even subconsciously, is to sort of give the reader a sense that they're also, the character is them. So in the way that Charlie Brown is just like, a couple of dots for eyes, like that simplicity, there's a psychological reason for the fact that you're able to identify more with a simply drawn character like that than a very, like, clearly rendered, like portrait, like a comic book character, like a Wolverine, or like an actual character with definable features that looks a specific way and doesn't have any ambiguity about their expression or the shape of their face. Um, you're more likely to empathize with this sort of character, rather than the fleshed out character. Do you have any like theories on that? I know you think about this stuff. I'm sure you do.
No, 100%. I mean, I feel like it allows the audience to imbue. It leaves it more up for interpretation. Allows the audience to
Yeah.
imprint their own experience on the character.
Yeah.
It offers a little bit more. I think I kind of consider my deadpan characters almost like human cats, or like when I have humans, like it's like the way that you can just sort of talk gibberish to your cat. You can imprint on your cat all kinds of emotions, and
Yeah.
like an inner life,
Project.
right? So it's almost like it seems paradoxical, but like the most simple expressions can actually kind of have characters that seem the most complex.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
that's true.
yeah,
It does seem counterintuitive, because you want to really nail the expression
right.
by drawing as many lines required to land that expression, but often it's just less lines that really kind of does the trick. The trick is knowing where to put them, where to put those lines.
Exactly,
It's
exactly.
so difficult to do it. I've seen people just like Sam was great at it. Sam Gross was great at it. Steig, even I mean, some of the modern contributors to the magazine, Steed is great at it. I think there's certain cartoonists who just know where to place an eye, like Cypress, and um, yeah, I just I like the idea of the less is more. Um, characters. And so I noticed that, like, Joe Data, I caught up with Joe in New York a few days ago, and we were talking about all kinds of stuff. But at one point, I noticed, I was talking about the fact that in his book Inked, you never see
Right.
there's no like big buggy eyes with like dots in them or anything like that. His characters have these sort of horizontal slits for eyes, so you
Yes.
never actually see
Yeah.
the eyes, and if they're not that, then they're a pair of glasses or a pair of like rectangle glasses. You never actually see the pupils.
Yeah. Chris Wayant has his characters wear glasses more often than not.
Yeah,
Without many pupils either. Yeah, it's that like Far Side Cow where it's just like the
yeah,
horizontal line. No, completely. I mean, I think I think that's kind of the origin of the notion that like maybe New Yorker cartoons aren't quote unquote funny, which obviously is not true. But that's kind of like the knock against is like because they actually have that. They're not telling you how to feel. They're not over delivering the joke or giving you any instruction on how to interpret the joke. They're letting
right.
they're letting you they're letting the reader do a lot of the emotional work, which actually makes them more complex.
Do you
So if
think?
I wasn't talking to you, just a
Yeah.
little insight behind the process, since I use wash on a lot of my stuff, since I wasn't
Yeah.
talking to you, I would also use this tool. If I,
Ah, yeah. The hairdryer
the old hair dryer,
magic.
just to speed things up.
Yeah. Did you always use traditional tools? I mean, I love using, getting my hands dirty and using ink and nibs and brushes and wash and all that kind of
100%.
stuff. But
Yeah. I didn't
yeah,
do nibs for a long time. I just started using nibs when I was doing my comic over the past couple of years, my comic
right.
strip. But I always used micron pens of
Okay.
various steps. You can actually create a pretty variable line, not as much as with a nib, but
Right. Right.
yeah. But I felt really comfortable with the microns. My sister was studying fashion design for a long time, and she would draw. My older sister, and she would draw these sketches using micron pens. And I would steal her art supplies. So that's actually how I started. How
Ah,
I started getting into the particular kind of pen.
yeah. I have used those particular ones, and also I think they're archival ink, aren't they?
They are, yes, exactly.
And they don't run on under like watercolor. Um, yeah, I've been experimenting with new tools. I went to um, Paris in 2023, and there's a store stationed there, magazine Sennelier, I think it's called, and it's basically like 3 floors of just nothing but art supplies. Which you walk in there and just come out bankrupt. But it's
Right.
just there's so many tools in there that you can't find in the US or Australia or anywhere. That for whatever reason they don't export them, they don't distribute them, and yeah, you just kind of I notice my style changing with the tool. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, completely. I
It's
mean, how you
it,
hold it, how like you're in a relationship with the ink as it is playing across the page, and like how that ink is, applied can really change the whole experience.
yeah. I am still waiting to find that one, magical tool that unlocks everything. But for the time being, it seems that the favorite tool to work with as far as inks or finished art is I use a Hunt 101 Imperial
Okay.
dip pen nib, one of these, and I'm just using like Higgins waterproof ink, and I clipped the back of the nib holder off because it was just too long, and the balance of the pen wasn't quite right. I couldn't quite get the balance right
Right.
with this flex nib because the flex nib was so sensitive. I really needed to have the weight of the pen be uh, you know a little bit different than a regular one. So that to me that one is it changed my style, but in a good way. It if anything, it helped me find my style, like my most authentic sort of version of my drawings, where it actually looks and feels like the way it does in my head.
Right. That's
But
really
then also,
that's powerful. I love that. I think part of the reason why I developed a more elaborate wash style is because I was fairly insecure about my line.
right,
like I needed something to compensate for it, or something to like make the image pop off the page, because I felt like my line wasn't doing enough on its own.
huh?
Um,
Do you think now? I mean, you've got such a great, especially with your children's books, you have such a confident line with those, and it's a different style than your New Yorker cartoons, I guess. Um, do you have a different approach when you're doing those, like knowing that you're going to be doing color and adding extra features that you wouldn't ordinarily add in a New Yorker cartoon?
yeah, I definitely want them to stand out more on the page. I mean, with kids' books, you're dealing with more real estate, right?
Right.
Than you would normally have, obviously, for a New Yorker cartoon. I mean, it used to be the case where they would let New Yorker cartoons be an entire page, but that's
Right.
extremely rare, if ever,
That's very right.
anymore. So, yeah, but like taking up that amount of real estate, you definitely want a heavier line. So I was conscious of that. And then also, I do the lines by hand, and then I color. I tried to color. I use a lot of watercolor, but I also augment digitally.
Okay.
Because there's a very involved editorial process, a lot of back and forth about like
Right. Right.
you want to have a lot of leeway to do that. Um, but yeah, color is something that I also really had to get more comfortable with. I'm very, very confident with grayscale and directing the eye,
Right.
through areas of shade.
Mm.
But man, I feel I can get a little bit lost when it's my turn when it's my turn to be like, okay, what palette do you want for this book? Like what color green should this crocodile be? It's like, oh my god, like I don't,
Yeah.
how do you what's your relationship to color?
Well, I have a similar relationship. I sort of seize up and I start to, outsource to other people. Go, hey, what do you think it should be? If there's an art director or if there's like an editor or something. I had to develop a palette for the series of books that I did. The dog book has one specific kind of color palette because all the dogs kind of have to seem like the colors of actual dogs. So there's different shades of brown and tan and I tried to add as much color in there as I could, but
Right.
it's tough when dogs are largely a lot of the same shade. But yeah, I ended up using like a color palette generator to get started, which helped me then
Smart. That's smart.
manually develop a further one, so that there is consistency throughout the book, and there is sort of when it's not jarring when you turn the page, and it feels like there is some kind of thematic consistency,
Right.
consistency to
Right.
it.
Right. Right. Yeah,
Um,
I
yeah.
need some guidance. Like I need some guide. So like what I'll sometimes do is I'll just like I'll look at the subject of the book, what feels appropriate to it, and then I'll look at the stuff that I really admire. So for the
Mm,
crocodile, I went back to a lot of some of my favorite Miyazaki movies, and
mm,
I took screen grabs and did the
nice.
eyedropper to like to just like give myself a toehold, and then
Yeah.
based on that, then I would sort of elaborate off the palette. But I need like a starting point for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's where I fall down is I never know where to start. So I try and figure out if there's a way around, having to just start that. So there are some palette generators online, and you can also feed in like that those films, the screenshots that you took, you can sort of feed those images into the palette generator, and then it will generate a palette based on those.
Oh,
Um,
amazing. Great.
yeah, which helps. I know that there are a lot of great like I don't know if you're familiar with like Tomer and Asaf Hanukkah, the illustrators,
Oh,
the
yes. Yeah. They're
brothers. Yeah, the
yeah,
really great cover illustrators. Or just illustrators in their own right. They've done a bunch of New Yorker covers, but I always love their color schemes. They're very thoughtful, very deliberate about the color. Um,
very bold too. Like very, very bold.
yeah,
Like I love it when he does the really star. I mean, when you actually step back and look at it, there's like with their compositions, there's maybe five, six colors that are used. But like
right.
the way they're blended is just so masterful. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Masterful is the right word. I actually have one of them on my wall.
Oh,
Um,
amazing.
the
I traded art with him as well.
oh, you did?
Yeah.
Nice. That's
Great.
fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite covers. Is the storm? I think it's from February of 2014. Was there's
Amazing.
this blizzard outside, and the couple inside from the old tenement buildings, um, sort of looking out the window at the snow covered
Yeah.
city. It's
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
this amazing, evocative. What are yellows? Um,
I love his
yeah,
sequence of Stanley Kubrick movie posters too.
yeah, yeah.
They're
Those are incredible.
really incredible.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you just before we finish up, I wanted to
Yeah, yeah.
ask if the best place to get the new book, the new collection of cartoons, because it's out October 7th. I'm going to send the link to everyone in the recap to this. But
Ama-
is there anywhere apart from your Substack that people should find it or find your work? Do you have a website or a social media that people would follow?
Yeah, yeah. Let me situate this back. So here's I didn't come up with any
That looks
cookies,
great, by the way.
but there's
That looks so great.
this pigeon, and there's this guy poking out.
The bricks.
Yeah, the bricks.
That's so great. I
So
love
yeah,
it.
I love yeah, this is real. As you can see the sheen of the water. It's dry.
Yeah. See, can't get that on digital.
Yeah, exactly. Let me just prop this back up. I admire your setup is so pro. I'm like struggling over here.
It's the only organized thing in this entire apartment. Everything else
The
is
only like
garbage fire.
I shudder to think what's beyond the frame of your. Okay, let me prop it up. I got and flip the camera around. Here we go. Yeah, so
Magic.
I have my book coming out October 7th.
Yes.
This collection of cartoons, and I think we started as a book
Amazing.
club. It's got like 205. You
Wow.
know, really well printed. All my like
That's
really
amazing.
all my favorite New Yorker stuff. So it's like
205.
it's really fun. It's really fun. And yeah, so it's on for Simon and Schuster. You can go to the Simon and Schuster site and they can like direct you toward a bunch of your favorite bookshops you can buy from, or like my website too, tomtoro.com. And I just
Cool.
started a Substack, Undiscovered Masterpieces, on this wonderful platform. And I
Yep.
do right now. I'm doing 3 cartoons a week. I'm probably going to up the quantity, but for now it's 3 cartoons that I don't publish anywhere else. They're just on Substack.
That's
So
great.
go check
Huh.
it out.
Yeah, I only just started following it recently because you only joined recently, but it's
Yeah, it's
I'm
like two.
really enjoying it. It's really fun to watch.
Great. Yeah, yeah. It's a lot of the wilder, weirder stuff that like obviously the New Yorker would never take. And it's like
Yeah, yeah,
really nice to have another venue to like what we were saying before, to like continue doing some experimental stuff, like growing, trying different techniques, facial expressions,
yeah,
all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
yeah. I love it. All right. Well, and it's called Undiscovered Masterpieces.
Undiscovered masterpieces. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. I love it. Well,
Very,
this was
very, very humble. It's a very humble, modest name for the stuff.
yeah, it's gonna rise in the ranks, and
Yeah,
I
exactly.
can see it already. This is really fun. I had a really good time. Thank you for making time. I appreciate it. I
Thank
could
you.
talk shop with you forever, and next time I see you out west or out here, we're probably just going to do the exact same thing. But
Wonderful. Wonderful.
if your book tour does take you out east, let us know. We'll get together and we'll do another one of these.
Wonderful, wonderful. Actually, I have a bunch of events coming up. We just on Joe. I'm going to be at Joe's Pub doing a big book celebration on November 12th, and
Fantastic. All right.
tickets for that just went live at Joe's Pub. So
That's great. It's Wednesday,
I'm
November 12th, right?
going to do like a cartoon presentation. I'm going to share my book. Obviously, Roz Chast is going to join me for a Q&A.
Wow.
It's going
That's
to be awesome.
amazing. I
Yeah, yeah.
love that. That's great. Roz and
So
you, that's,
we'll definitely get in touch. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, that sounds amazing. All right. Well, congrats. That sounds really cool. That's really
Thanks.
cool. All
Yeah.
right. Well, yeah. So go follow Tom Toro on Substack, Undiscovered Masterpieces, and get the book. Pre-order the book now. Pre-order. You got to get the pre-orders in. They're very important.
We're looking at you. I see you.
Looking straight at you. All right, Tom.
All
Thanks
right, Jason.
again. I'll
Thanks.
see you
Thanks.
later. Thanks again. Bye.